to the resumption of meeting number 88, the House of Commons Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates, aka the Mighty Ogo. Pursuant to Standing Order 1064, the committee is resuming its suspended meeting to consider requests for contracts between the federal government and the electric vehicle battery manufacturing companies. Reminder everyone to keep your earpieces away from the microphones as it causes feedback and potential injury. When the committee suspended last night, we were debating an amendment moved by Ms. Vignola, and she still has the floor. We're therefore resuming debate on the amendment from Mrs. Vignola. Go ahead, madam, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur le...
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Given the schedule, I would like to move the following motion that the committee move to the study of the supplementary estimates B. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a dilatory motion from the floor to start a study on the supplementary estimates with the minister, who just happens to be here. Colleagues, are we fine with this, or do we just need to vote? We seem to have unanimous consent. Thank you very much. Minister, please join us. We'll have a very, very, very short suspension while the minister and his team gets ready. Resuming its study on the SUP-Bs 2023-2024. We'll get the Minister to start his opening statement while we're handing out our nameplates. Minister, thanks for your patience. You have 5 minutes. The floor is yours, sir.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Hello to everybody. Thank you for your invitation to come and take part in the important work of your committee. Thank you to all of the other work. I would like to begin by acknowledging that we are gathered on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe peoples. With me today are my Deputy Minister Ariana Reza, Scott Jones, President SSC, Mojo Ziolenka, ADM and Chief Financial Officer, PSPC, Scott Davis, and other people will be joining us during the second hour. Simon Page, ADM, Catherine Poulain, ADM, Michael Mills, ADM, Procurement Branch, and Daniel Mills, ADM, Enterprise IT Procurement and Corporate Services Branch. I'm pleased to be here to discuss Supplementary Estimates B for PSPC and Shared Services Canada. It's the first time that I appear here as in my role as Minister, and I hope that I'll be able to answer questions on important topics, including the progress that we are making with the Canadian Dental Program, as well as progress that we're doing in improving numerous services and what we're doing to increase affordable housing, to name just a few.
Regarding the specifics of our requests in Supplementary Estimates B, I would like to take a moment to recognize and thank the committee for its ongoing study of ArriveCAN. I have also been following developments and receiving updates from my officials in order to better understand the various elements of this matter. First, I would like to be clear on the division of roles and responsibilities. PSPC is the government's common service provider when it comes to contracting. That does not mean that PSPC handles every contract from every government department or agency, but it does handle the larger and more complex contracts. PSPC also identifies qualified suppliers for a wide variety of goods and services so that other departments and agencies can then enter into their own contracts under their own authorities to meet their own needs. So, while, for instance, the Canadian Border Services Agency, as you have heard, oversaw the development and deployment of the ArriveCAN app, PSPC developed the contracting tools and supplier lists that could be used for that project or any other project that the agency determined was necessary. Mr. Chair, we know there is always room for improvement in our processes, which is why we are taking immediate steps to ensure our processes are working as they should. PSPC is validating the security of resources who worked for GC Strategies, Coradix, and Dalian onto their contracts over the last 12 years as requested. Mr. Chair, this is a significant undertaking that is still underway. À ce jour, SPAC a reçu l'information sur 3 000.
To this day, PSPC has received information about 3,000 providers, and we can confirm that 99% of consultants have the appropriate security clearance. As for the other resources, the study continues. Given the nature of the allegations, my department has asked for all departments with contracts, active contracts, to provide information and ensure that all consultants have the correct security clearance. Following the reception of this information, we will be able to determine if there is a generalized problem. If that is the case, then we will take measures. Officials have told me of the work that they're already doing to reduce risk in this area, especially when it comes to professional services. In the short time, they will strengthen the instruments of procurement that exist. They will also ensure that resources assigned to contracts are safe and make sure that people who are responsible for this follow the appropriate training.
Procurement training. These are some of the initial steps being undertaken. In addition, I'm confident that the work you are yourselves undertaking, informed by the reviews of the Office of the Procurement Ombudsman and Auditor General, will significantly help identify potential ways to improve further procurement processes, controls, and better value. Mr. Chair, I have used my time during my opening remarks to focus on issues related to the integrity of the procurement process, as I know this topic is of interest to this committee. Nonetheless, I recognize that my officials and I have been asked to speak to you about the request in our Supplementary Estimates B, and we would be pleased to do so. En somme, Monsieur le Président, pour soutenir nos activités,
To support our activities, we are requesting access to additional funding of $229 million for PSPC and $53.2 million for Shared Services Canada. We would be pleased to talk about the system in place and everything we're doing to improve accessibility to dental care, the healthcare insurance system for public servants.
Thank you, Minister. We'll start with Ms. Cusi, please, for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for being here today. Minister, as you indicated in your opening remarks, on October 4th of this year, the Globe and Mail reported that there were numerous contracting discrepancies between Bottler AI, GC Strategies, Dalian and Coradix, and the CBSA, resulting in a criminal investigation. These alleged activities included collusion, fraud, identity theft, forged resumes, and fraudulent contracting. How do you, as the Minister of Procurement, account for this lack of oversight and this criminal investigation?
Thank you. And let me be clear from the start. The Butler AI contract to which you correctly allude has nothing to do with ArriveCAN. It is a contract that was undertaken for other purposes. Now, it is totally appropriate that the RCMP is investigating the important allegations of misconduct in this contract. I understand this is under the purview of CBSA, the Canadian Border Services Agency, and we have confidence that they are going to do their due diligence in digging into this important matter.
So you are trying to shirk responsibility here today with this committee, indicating that this had nothing to do with the ArriveCAN investigation that we are currently undergoing at this committee, that this committee is seized with. And yet, this GC Strategies, which we have found was involved in the building of ArriveCAN, which received $11 million for sending a few emails over LinkedIn to other companies, is still being used. This company that's being investigated in a criminal investigation by the RCMP is still being used across government. You, as the procurement minister, you have the authority to stop the use of this company, which is being criminally investigated across government. And yet you're refusing to do so. You're allowing other departments under the purview of procurement to use GC Strategies, a company that is under criminal investigation. How do you respond to that, Minister, that you do not eliminate the use of GC Strategies across government as you have the purview to do?
Very good. So first, a clarification, and second, an explanation. The clarification is around Butler AI. As we've just mentioned, the contract to Butler AI had nothing to do with ArriveCAN. I think it's important to repeat that because as members of the committee, you have the right to understand the matters and the facts. In terms of clarification, I will turn to my officials who are experts in the clear understanding of the allocation of contractual authorities, financial authorities, and actual implementation of monitoring of the contracts themselves. So I'll ask Minister.
I don't think we want to hear from the authorities. I think Canadians want to hear from you that you will take responsibility for the use of this company, which is still being allowed to be used across government. This is just completely unacceptable. I'll give you some more information, Minister, and perhaps you'll have a better response for Canadians with this. GC Strategies reached out to the CBSA to create a relationship to sell Butler AI's technology and help them fulfill their obligations under C65. So let's make the connection. GC Strategies that was used with the ArriveCAN app is also being used within this contract. Instead of directly paying GC Strategies, the company they were in communication with, the CBSA instead decided to pay Dalian and Caradix to pay GC Strategies to pay Butler through an existing contract. This contract was valued at $21.2 million and was Informatics professional services and was also used, Minister, for ArriveCAN. Does this contracting process concern you at all? And if it does, what are you doing about it right now for Canadians? This should be very concerning for you. This has seized meeting upon meeting of Government Operations Committee. So please share with Canadians what actions you are taking right now today to ensure that we never have another RCMP investigation to this level of potential fraud with the government ever again. Thank you, Minister.
Good. I think, again, all members of this committee expect and deserve information, clear information on what took place. And again, I want to point out that the matter under investigation by the RCMP is a matter of the contractual use of Butler AI on matters that had nothing to do with ArriveCAN. Now, this is still an important matter that has been put to the attention of CBSA, and on what we can do within this department, I'll turn to Deputy Minister Reza.
Again, Minister, I appreciate you doing that. But again, I think Canadians want to hear from you as the accountable minister here today. And I'm going to conclude, Chair, with this final question. You may also, Minister, be aware that we have had senior public officials in this committee lie to this committee and lie to Canadians, and that's completely unacceptable. So I want you to ask you, do you approve of your subordinates lying to this committee and lying to Canadians, Minister?
Again, I think we all want to be honest and clear to Canadians.
They were not, so I hope you can be. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'm not saying I don't want to control how this committee works. I'm there to serve and to provide appropriate information for the important work that you do. But when we hear that these are my subordinates, I'm sorry, but I'm not the minister of CVSA. I would like to be the minister of everything. My responsibility is to be minister of PSPC, and I have great officials with me who will be able and very pleased to provide you with the important information and clarity of information that you deserve in this particular committee. They're there for you.
Thanks, Minister.
Procurement reports to you, Minister. Thank you, Chair.
We'll
I
now
think
go to
that's
Mr.
my
Baines
time.
for 6 minutes,
Thank you,
please. Go
Mr.
ahead.
Ducey. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister, for joining us today, and to all of our members here that are joining with you. And thank you again for visiting British Columbia and taking the time to tour the Vancouver shipyard. As you know, it's very important. The maritime sector of British Columbia is extremely important to us, and I want to take a moment just to thank you for joining us and taking some significant time to listen to the people at Seaspan and the work that they're doing. That leads me into my first question. I know that earlier this year, you were with the Prime Minister at the Davie Shipyard to announce it had finally been included in the National Shipbuilding Strategy. And on November 15th, while you visited Seaspan shipyards with me with the skilled workers and to mark the major step towards the completion of the offshore oceanographic science vessel, this was an extremely important development for Canada's shipbuilding capacity. Can you tell us what the long-term agreements also mean for the shipyards in terms of predictability and stability?
Thank you, MP Baines, and thank you, Parm, for indeed hosting me when I was able and pleased to visit your riding. And we were able to meet with the dedicated, hard-working workers at Seaspan. They were so pleased to tell us about what you've just mentioned, the soon-to-be released OOSV, the Oceanic Offshore Science Vessel, which is the largest and the most modern science vessel ever constructed in Canada by the proud and hard-working workers of Seaspan. Many of their families live in your riding, and you saw how grateful they are to the whole of the caucus around the Lower Mainland. Now, this is also pointing to the fact that the National Shipbuilding Strategy every year is supporting the jobs of about 20,000 workers in many places in Canada, including the smaller shipyards, which are not part of the three larger ones, and to which we will be sending more work in the years to come. That also involves about $2.1 billion in additional GDP contribution because of their work. And you heard, like me, the fact that they want to collaborate with the other two big shipyards, in Irving and Davie. So we look forward to decades of work by people, workers in your riding and in many other places in Canada.
Thank you. And we talk about some of the big three strategic partners, but there are also some dozens of smaller shipyards and other small and medium-sized businesses in communities across the country who can contribute to the National Shipbuilding Strategy. Do you have any figures on the economic benefits derived from the contracts awarded to these SMEs?
Yes. Well, not only do we work really well and are we grateful of the work that the larger shipyards, the three of them, do every day for the bigger ships, but we also are indirectly contributing to the growth of SMEs. About 5% in contract value of the work that is allocated to the larger shipyards ends up in small and medium-sized enterprises across Canada. That's in addition to the investments we're making to support the smaller shipyards like Heddle and the Groupe Océan and many others across Canada that are there also to support workers and communities as they also provide the necessary ship needs that the Coast Guard and the Armed Forces will need and will be able to build on in the next decades.
I do want to get just a housing question. I met with the Canadian Housing and Renewal Association today, who recently commissioned a study from Deloitte which found that bringing Canada's community housing stock to the OECD average by 2030 would boost economic productivity by a staggering 5.7 to 9.3%. Can you inform the committee what PSPC is optimizing our real property portfolio to create more affordable housing?
Excellent question. We do indeed need more affordable, in particular affordable rental and social housing. For the last 3 decades, Canada has been lagging in terms of the construction of these types of units. It's been 3 decades. The crisis has been 3 decades being built. And that's why we, since 2017, with the first ever national housing strategy, we have started to reverse that unfortunate trend. And we will do that in part through the use of federal lands and buildings. Just a few weeks ago, I was able to announce the construction of about 2,800 units, many of them affordable in the next few months by the end of March, and 28,000 additional units in the next 5 years, which is twice as many as we have constructed in the last 30 years because of federal land and building. So we are speeding up the investments because we know it's needed by middle class and lower income Canadians.
Thanks, Mr. Baines. Ms. Magnola, please, for 6.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. Minister, when you were at Treasury Board, did you negotiate the move from Sun Life to Canada Life? I did not negotiate that. Was it under your mandate? Yes, well, luckily we have experts here. The contract was negotiated by the department that I represent today. So it was under Ms. Anand? Yes. This summer, there was a big surprise for taxpayers, almost $500,000, $500 million for shipbuilding. But if you read about it, then you realize that they were due in 2032. So you would have thought that with that amount of money, the dates could have been brought forward. But in your own words, that sum of money will allow Canadians to take possession of those ships in the beginning of the 2030s. 2030s, 2032 is pretty similar. You also refused to give fair support to other shipyards. Isn't there any provision in the agreements with shipyards for their profits to be invested in updating their shipyards? And I'll stop there for Irving and the $500 million grant. Thank you. Very good. Mr. Pak, who's with me, has details on that. So there are several steps. First step is when a shipyard is recognized as being a member of the National Shipbuilding Strategy. And then there's a step where the shipyards have to be updated. That's the case with the 3 shipyards. In the case of Irving, I will let Simon provide some details and talk about what was necessary to accelerate the renovation of the shipyards. Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. As my minister said, the Irving shipyard invested with its own money and grants from the province, like all other shipyards. Yes, and then there were specific investments for the combatant project. It wasn't the same project that had been asked for at the beginning. And so initially, when we started the strategy, we were talking about a ship of 6,500 tons, but the complexity and the density increased. Now we're talking about a ship that's about 9,000 tons in weight. So because of that, there were specific steps and requirements for investments in the shipyard in order to speed the project up. So because the government had made a mistake in assessing the tonnage of the ship, the government has to pay the price and give $500 million to update the Irving shipyard. Is that correct in my understanding? Well, it wasn't a mistake. It's just that there were assumptions that were made at the beginning. When the shipyard signed on to the strategy and when they signed the framework agreement, we did not yet know what the design would look like. So if there are any changes, similar changes in the future, given that you've signed the agreements with Seaspan and Davy, there might be other shadowy areas like what happened with Irving. If that happens, then is the government going to give a similar fair treatment to the other shipyards, or does Irving get special treatment? They don't get special treatment. There was a later investment when the shipyards reach the state that they need to reach. We'll assess things. Thank you. I also have a question for the money set aside for P8s. Does that sum include the infrastructure that is necessary to use the P8s, like hangars, for example? And if so, where will the infrastructure be situated? Once again, I will ask Simon to answer because he's in the best position to provide an answer. Thank you very much for the question. So, the project of the aircraft includes several costs, including infrastructure. Often, we tend to think that infrastructure only has to do with buildings, but it's much wider or broader. How much and where? I don't have the figure with me. The department has to determine which portion of the cost is dedicated to infrastructure, but I don't have the exact proportion. Can you ask them to send that to us? Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for being here and your team. Now, Minister, you just talked about selling public lands, public buildings for housing. It's something I've heard your government speak about recently. We saw what happened in Ontario with the Greenbelt and the Conservatives there. We've seen that happen with former BC Liberals in the province of BC, where public lands are sold, ending up with profits for a handful of developers, and they don't end up turning into affordable housing. I put forward a motion at this committee that was supported unanimously to ensure that public lands that belong in public hands are accessible for affordable housing, and looking at guidelines and safeguards to ensure that that doesn't happen again, what happened in Ontario. Now, are you working on guidelines to make sure that the same thing doesn't happen? Because I'm concerned that you're going to unload buildings and lands, and they're going to end up profiting a handful of developers and not be designated purely for affordable housing. What certainties do you have for Canadians that that's what's going to happen?
That's a great question, and let me answer in two parts. First, about the plan, and second, about a concrete example of what that plan is leading to. So the plan is indeed to make available those lands and buildings, often located in the centers of cities, like in Ottawa or in other larger cities, where we know that we want to work with the municipalities to revitalize the downtown area so that we can bring people closer to public transit, closer to schools, closer to services. And that involves, in many cases, working with nonprofit housing providers, social housing providers, community organizations, municipalities, so that those lands and buildings are provided to them in different ways at a cost which makes them able to provide affordable housing units for people that need those
I'm just
units.
looking for certainty. I want certainty that it's not going to end up being some developer-driven model. And that's what we're looking for. I want to know, are you providing guidelines to make sure that this doesn't happen?
So, for instance, Canada Lands Company, which is leading the development of these 28,000 units I mentioned earlier, has a minimum of 20% of the units being affordable.
I don't think that's good enough. Public lands belong in public hands. Are you giving them direction to provide guidelines so that all building and lands are going to be for affordable housing?
So you have a mixed setting with mixed use, mixed people. Some of them may not need affordable homes, others will need affordable
We've
homes.
seen that hybrid model. That was kind
So
of what the Green Belt was
example I
supposed
was
to be.
going to provide, which is very nearby, is called the Water Ridge Village, just a few kilometers here in Ottawa. If you go and visit them, you'll see there are homes for veterans, homes for formerly homeless Canadians, single parents, homes for people that are maybe in the middle class or even in conditions which would make them able to pay for higher rents or higher prices than middle class Canadians.
Okay, it still doesn't give me the confidence that I'm looking for. Now, Ms. Kuzi asked a very reasonable question. Daliax, Cordex, and GC Strategies have been suspended from doing business with the CBSA. And you may not be the minister of CBSA, but you are the minister of Public Services and Procurement. When you know companies are being investigated by the RCMP, are suspended from another department, and you're still allowing them to get contracts cross-government, why? And it's going to take ministerial involvement to ensure that they're not doing business cross-government, given what they're facing.
So that might finally enable me to turn to Deputy Minister Reza, who will explain what is being done in that context.
Thank you very much for the question. And I think it's at the heart of a lot of what is going on. So as we know, we have these allegations which are under investigation, CBSA and with the RCMP. Until the investigation is done, it's very hard for us to actually control everything because there is a level of due diligence and due process that's allowed to this Canadian SME. In the interim, what we've done is we've identified every active contract, every previous active contract. We've gone through every security clearance. We continue to go through it. We've gone back and forth and said, you must demonstrate to us the level of CVs of your audit. Look at the services they've delivered. So I know that's an answer that may not be pleased, but we have done a tremendous amount of work in the broader enterprise, even where CBSA is not the contract manager, and the work order that we...
So, Ms. Reza, are you saying you're checking all the CVs? Because we know what happened with GC Strategies and the edits they made, which was fraudulent, clearly. I just want some certainty that, and I think what we're trying to say to you is that the government is, these are serious allegations, enough for a whole department to suspend activities. So I think I'm going to leave it for a second because I need to go to a question here. Your government's committed to spend $21.6 billion in highly paid consultants on outsourcing for services for Canadians. Now, my understanding is you're going to cut 15% of what you allocated for outsourcing. Now, we had the PBO here last week. He identified that it would cost about $904 million for the government to help protect about 250,000 businesses by extending the CEBA loan for 1 year. Now, he agreed with my calculations last week that approximately a 4.2% cut on outsourcing would cover the whole cost of the CEBA loan extension. So you could cut outsourcing by 4.2% and choose to help 250,000 businesses, a third of which I've identified they can't even borrow from the bank. They won't be able to pay the loan, and they'll lose the forgivable portion. Why are you choosing these highly paid consultants over 250,000 businesses that need help?
I'm afraid that is our time. Perhaps we can get back to the next round, or perhaps it can be provided in writing. Mr. Brock, please, 4 or 5.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, you appeared before the Senate on October the 18th, 2023 at a question period, and you were asked a number of questions by 2 senators on the ArriveCAN application. 4 questions were put to you. You were evasive, you were non-responsive. So let's hope your responses to committee today are a little more on point. So the question that was put to you that you did not answer was that the RCMP is investigating the shady contracts surrounding the ArriveCAN. The Trudeau government hid the fact from the Auditor General and from all Canadians. And in fact, when it was revealed...
Wait 1 moment, we have a point of order.
Just to correct, Director, the RCMP are not investigating the ArriveCAN
Mr.
scam.
Sousa, that's not a point of order. You can bring that up during your time. Thanks.
Just to correct, Director.
Mr. Sousa, please. Go ahead, Mr. Brock.
And when it was brought to the attention of the committee that the Auditor General did not hear about the investigation from the Liberal government themselves, but rather a story from the Globe and Mail, everyone was shocked. Canadians were shocked. And the Liberals, with the assistance of the NDP, shamefully shut down the committee after one full round of questions. So my question to you, sir, is who hired the GC Strategies to work on the ArriveCAN? Because government officials at the CBSA are pointing fingers at each other. They're blaming each other. They're not answering the questions. So I know that you're not responsible for CBSA, but you're certainly responsible for the funding that went to CBSA to pay the $11 million to a two-person company that works out of their basement, who did no IT work whatsoever, but simply did a Google search and found IT professionals and pocketed $11 million of taxpayer money. Who hired GC Strategies?
Thank you. And for the sake of being clear and factual, let me again point to what my colleague MP Souza said. The RCMP is not investigating ArriveCAN. So
Sir,
No,
this
well,
is my time. Who hired GC Strategies?
Sorry, we've got a point of order. One moment. Go ahead.
Yeah, can we make sure that the witness has enough time, the same time that they're being asked a question,
Point of
provided
order.
time to be able to answer?
In this committee, I've always recognized the time as the member's time, and it's Mr. Brock to
Minister,
use, just as I'm sure Mr. Souza yourself will be able to use your time for that.
Minister, Canadians want a straight answer from this government. We're not getting it from senior bureaucrats. We're not getting it from any member of the CBSA. Who was responsible for hiring GC Strategies and giving them $11 million of the $54 million price tag for the ArriveCAN? Who was it?
So we're there to help. We're there to provide information. If there is no time to provide information, that is fine. We'll perhaps be able
Will
to
you
provide it
undertake,
in writing.
Minister, will you undertake to give me that answer? Because CBSA will not give me that answer. Will you, as Minister of PSPC, give this committee that answer? Yes or no?
Now, Chair, I'm not totally new in committee meetings. I believe in previous experiences with previous chairs, the minister had approximately the same amount of time to answer as the question.
And you've actually exceeded the time now. So my question is yes or no.
So if
will
you
you
want me
give
to
us?
listen to questions, that's fine. If you want me to answer questions, that might be a different
I'm
matter.
going to interrupt here, and will repeat what I said earlier. I've been on this committee for 8 years, and in this committee, the practice has always been it is the members' time. And gentleman's asked a question, and we always expect and request straight answers.
So Minister, I'll ask the question again. Will you undertake to this committee to give us information at who within the CBSA hired this two-person firm and gave this two-person consulting firm who hired IT personnel and experts and gave them $11 million? Will you give us that answer, sir? Who hired GC Strategies?
So first, the RCMP is not investigating ArriveCAN. Second, the Minister of PSPC is not responsible for funding CBSA, unlike what you said earlier. So that's the second fact which I think we all need to be clear about. And third, CBSA did choose GC Strategies, and you are
CBSA
you're totally right to ask them the
Minister,
question.
who at the CBSA was responsible for the decision to hire GC Strategies? Will you undertake, for the fifth time now, me asking this question, will you undertake to give us that answer?
Will you undertake to ask CBSA who contracted GC Strategies?
I ask the questions, you respond.
Well, I'm
again,
asking the
sir.
question because you don't provide
I'm
me with
asking
time
the
to
question.
answer.
Will
so
you do
maybe-
that, sir? Yes or no?
No, let me be a bit more
Okay, you're
positive.
evasive. I'll move on, sir. You don't want to answer the question. I'll move on. GC Strategies has been suspended by the CBSA. How many other departments is GC Strategies currently working with?
Be as helpful as I can be. So if you want to ask CBSA a question,
That wasn't the
it's
question.
Perfectly fine.
How many
appropriate
other
to ask
how
the
many other
CBSA
government
question.
departments is GC Strategies currently bidding on and doing work for and receiving taxpayer funds while they're under investigation by the RCMP? How many other departments, and please identify them?
I'm afraid that is our time. Perhaps we can get back to that another round, or perhaps we can provide that. The question has been brought up. When point of orders are brought up, we do stop the clock. So just so you're aware. Mr. Kuzmirchuk, we actually finally have you back up on the screen, so go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And again, conservatives like to generate a lot of heat and very little light. And I want to focus on an issue that is of great importance to Canadians and is of great importance to my community, which is the building of affordable housing. And I was delighted, Minister, to hear that 6 additional properties were unlocked federal surplus lands to create 2,800 new units. Calgary, Ottawa, St. John's, and this will bring up the total units that will be built in the next number of years on federal lands to about 29,000 units, and I'm really excited about that. We have a property in Windsor on the main road downtown, Olette Avenue. It's 960 Olette Avenue. It's the former HMCS Hunter building. It is a federally owned by the Defense Department right now. It's been shuttered for a number of years. It's prime property to convert to affordable housing. And I just wanted to ask you if you can just highlight once again the work that's being done to accelerate the conversion of federally owned surplus lands into affordable housing. How do we unlock it and get it in the hands of those folks that can convert it to affordable housing in communities like mine that desperately need it?
Well, thank you, Eric. That's a wonderful question. It also speaks to your great leadership in your writing, and I'm sure that people listening to us today will appreciate a demonstration of it again. The CLC, the Canada Lands Company, is leading the effort that is absolutely needed to invest in more affordable housing in many communities, including in your writing, Eric, and we'll work together to make sure that this happens as quickly and as efficiently as possible. You pointed to a recent announcement. In the last 5 years, we invested about, our CLC, the Canada Lands Company, last 7 years, created about 10,000 units, housing units. In the next 5 years, we'll be creating 29,000 housing places for people to live in communities like yours, close to public transit, to services, to schools, to those places that people value for themselves and their communities. Many of them will be affordable. In fact, as I mentioned earlier, we will be we'll be creating more affordable homes in the next 5 years than we have created in the last 20 years because of the Canada Land Company leaderships. So it's great news, but that requires a lot of partnership, and the important partnership is with community organizations, non-profit housing providers, including social and public housing providers, municipalities, councillors, and the type of private expertise that is needed when it comes to constructing those homes in a safe and reliable manner. So we'll be working together, and I invite every other member of parliament of all political stripes to work with Canada Lands Company, with our assistance, to make sure that more of these homes are constructed more quickly and in the right places.
And Minister, it's about creating a mix of homes. Can you speak a little bit about how we've strengthened our ambitions to build more affordable housing through the Canada Lands Company? Have we increased the proportion of affordable housing that will be built on those federal lands?
And the answer is yes. In any community, regardless of whether they already have a minimum percentage of affordable homes, in any community, the minimum will be 20%. Now, if in some communities, like in Windsor, the city or partners want to elevate that to a higher proportion, that will be even better, but it cannot be below 20%. And as you've pointed out, these community homes are built in mixed settings with mixed partnership, mixed uses. Again, I would invite everyone in the, either living or working in the National Capital Region to visit Waterridge Village in Ottawa. It's a remarkable example of what the leadership of Canada Lands Company can do in little time with great impact.
And are you speaking directly with Canada Lands Company to accelerate the amount of time it takes for that land to be unlocked? Are we focusing on accelerating that unlocking of that land as well?
Just a quick answer, please.
Yes, and the best way to do that is to work in parallel. So as we proceed with the disposal, the putting to use of public lands and buildings to the community, working with municipalities in parallel, working with private partners in parallel, that can accelerate considerably the availability of those homes.
Thank you, Mr. Kuzmierczak. Ms. Vignola for 2.5 minutes, then Mr. Johns, then Mr. Genuis, Mr. Jouari, and then we'll excuse the minister. Go ahead, please, Ms. Vignola.
Merci beaucoup. Je vais
Thank you. I will continue with Boeing's P-8. The comments that we've heard are that the aircraft is heavy and it can't fly for as long as other aircraft that were looked at, and requires more hours of work per hour of flight. So my question is simple: why not call for bids to ensure that all companies, not just Bombardier, but all companies that have an aircraft that is a possibility, could provide a bid in this case?
Au sous-ministre Page, rappelons les deux objectifs.
Before I let my official answer, I'd like to say that, first of all, it's important to recognize the significant need for defending our borders. Yes, but the question is, why not do a call for tender? We know that the timeline is long enough to allow for that kind of process, to have a study and really find the very best solution at the best price for Canada. Why not do a call for tender? That's my question. Yes, as you said very rightly, the goal here is to do the best thing for the country when it comes to availability, the capacity, and the impact on the market. In Canada, there's a process for procurement not only of aircraft, but also when it comes to maintenance. Yes, but an open call would allow us to have a much more complete view of the impacts here, rather than simply going straight to one specific aircraft that is 30 years old. So why not do an open process and ensure that we really have the best solution? There are available options for the short term. The methods, processes, and results are all geared towards having the very best result for Canadians and for the armed forces. Is this a deal with the U.S.?
Mr. Johns, please, 2.5.
Sorry, the PBO confirmed that a cut of 4.2% on outsourcing would cover the whole costs of extending the CEBA loan for a year. That would help support 250,000 businesses. Now, we know that some of the contractors that are getting consulting contracts, some of them don't even have any experience or expertise in tech even, and they're getting IT contracts, Minister, and they're taking between 15 and 30% commission. Then they're subcontracting. Those subcontractors are taking a commission. Then they're subcontracting to other contractors who also might be taking a commission. In fact, your department officials confirmed that there is actually no cap on commissions. So I'll help you find the 4.2% cut that's needed to help those businesses. And that is, will you put a limit on all commissions for outsourcing contracts to these expensive, highly paid consultants?
Two pieces to that as well. First, the dollar impact, and second, the value of that impact. So you will know most likely that we are reducing the contractual value of professional services by 15%. That will generate economies of about $7 billion over the next 5 years and $1.7 billion ongoing thereafter. That is going to enable us to refocus some of those dollars to places and uses that you've mentioned, including continuing to support small and medium-sized.
2.5 minutes. I'm asking you, will you put a limit on commissions and extend the SEBA loan for small businesses. This is a simple choice. Small businesses over highly paid consultants that a lot of them don't even have expertise. Now I'm going to go to Phoenix because, you know, the Conservatives brought in Phoenix. It was expected to save $80 million a year. Your government carried forward with it. And my last recollection is it was $2.3 billion that it's cost Canadians. I also know that you're going after people that have been overpaid instead of going and making sure that people that have been underpaid, people who've done work, that are losing their houses. I think you need to get your priorities in order and make sure that people who've done their work are getting paid. When are you going to fix this? And how much has it actually cost so far?
Well, as you implicitly suggest, it is totally unacceptable that public servants are not paid on time and in the right manner. And there are still many of them now in 2023, despite the fact that we have invested significant dollars over the last 7 years to correct the failure of Phoenix. Now, it is not finished. We need to continue addressing the legitimate needs and expectations of public servants who work very hard every day to serve Canadians. And that's why we're going to continue. We are hiring more compensation advisors in a context in which we need more of them. We are automatizing a lot of the processes. We are making it
outsourcing, because it sounds like this whole thing's an outsourcing.
That is our time, gentlemen. Mr. Genos for 5, please.
Chair, Mr. Duclos, after 8 years, one of the biggest problems we see with this NDP Liberal government is that while everything is broken, nobody ever takes responsibility. Now, you're the Minister of Public Services and Procurement of Canada. That means your responsibilities include procurement. So I want to ask you again, who is the person responsible for the decision to use GC Strategies and procure through them the ArriveCAN app?
Well, I've tried to answer before, but I was cut off. So I'll turn to Deputy Minister Reza to provide the answer.
I want to hear from you, Minister. You're the minister responsible. I'll give you the time. I want you to answer the question.
No, I'll invite Deputy Minister Reza because she might be more fortunate than I was earlier.
No, I would like to hear from the minister who is supposed to be responsible for procurement to tell us who is responsible for the decision to procure the ArriveCAN app. I want to hear from the minister.
Well, I can provide information on what ArriveCAN did.
No, that's not what the question is, Minister. The question is who is responsible for the decision. Your title, if I understand it correctly, is Minister of Public Services and Procurement of Canada. This was a procurement of $54 million. It was procured through a two-person company that did no IT work and subcontracted the work. You're responsible, I think, to provide answers to this committee regarding procurement. So can you tell this committee who was responsible for the decision to procure through GC Strategies?
So what you just said is inaccurate because you've just said that $54 million was granted to a particular firm. ArriveCAN...
Minister, I wasn't born yesterday. Who was responsible for the decision?
So let me continue. So
who is responsible for the decision,
is
Minister?
Associated with 14 different outcomes, the first of which
Minister,
indeed cost $80,000.
Who was responsible for the decision?
Okay. Am I allowed to continue?
Chair, I'd actually ask you to bring the witness to order.
Yeah,
he has an obligation to answer a question just like any other citizen who appears before this committee.
Specific question.
Point of order, Mr. Chair, point of order.
Point of order, Mr. Kuzmierczak.
Mr. Chair, again, just allow the witness to respond to the questions here. We're all interested in the response. These rapid fire questions.
Thanks, Mr. Kuzmierczak. I think we have
nice
two
nice try.
I've got the floor still. Two issues. Yes, allow the minister to respond, but the member has asked very specific question. I think we're looking for a very specific answer. He's offered you the time to answer the very specific question, and I'll turn the floor back to Mr. Genos. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. I will repeat the question. I've said it a few times, but I don't want there to be any confusion, Minister, about what information I'm looking for. Who was responsible for the decision to use GC Strategies for the procurement of the ArriveCAN app? Who made that decision?
As I said earlier, it's CBSA that made those decisions.
Do you know which person was responsible for that decision?
You should ask the Minister of CBSA. We'll be very pleased to come and visit the committee.
Minister, I asked a similar question to your officials, and Ms. Durgan told the committee the following. For the initial ArriveCan contract, CBSA approached us with a procurement strategy for sole sourcing. They presented GC strategies to PSPC. So your officials told us that they received a proposal from CBSA. Could you explain to the committee who in your department made the decision to proceed and who approached your department from CBSA?
So GC Strategies was selected by CBSA, and now I'll turn to DM Riza to provide the mechanics of how this happened.
Who on your side made the decision? Who on their side brought it to you? This is an extremely important matter because we have senior public servants at CBSA accusing each other of lying about who is responsible. Cameron McDonald and Min Doan are both accusing each other of lying because nobody wants to take responsibility for the decision. It seems you don't want to take responsibility for this either. Could you, and we would love to hear at some point from the minister of CBSA at the time, but could you tell us who are the individuals in their department and your department who made this decision?
The work of the members of this committee is very important. You're entitled to ask the right questions to the right people. I've already answered the question as to whether we selected GC Strategies. The answer is no. If you want to know more about the contractual relationships or the
Minister, I'd like to know who made the decision. Have you asked who made the decision?
My deputy minister will be pleased to answer.
Minister, have you asked who made the decision?
As I said,
have you asked who made the decision?
Was selected by CBSA.
Have you asked the person who made the decision?
If you'd like to ask CBSA who exactly made those decisions within that department, it's a perfectly appropriate question. If you want to know the mechanics between PSPC and CBSA,
Minister, just to conclude,
we'll be very happy to answer.
I've asked you a pretty basic question about who the individuals responsible for the decision are. You haven't answered. You haven't answered about who's responsible or whether you've asked who's responsible. Your title is Minister of Public Services and Procurement, and you're telling us you're not responsible for procurement and you don't know who is. So I'm left wondering, what is it that you do as Minister of Procurement?
That is our time. Mr. Duclos, you're welcome to answer it, but we have on to Mr. Zouari, but
I think I've answered the question many times, and I'll be pleased to answer it again if it comes back later.
Okay. Mr. Zouari.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, welcome. Two quick questions. Is ArriveCan under investigation by RCMP?
The answer is no, and I think Canadians expect and deserve to know the truth.
No is a great answer. You repeated that about 3 or 4 times. Now there's an allegation that $11 million were paid to GC Strategy. This $11 million all went to GC Strategies, or is there any information of how much of it was charged to the GC Strategy, how much of it was sent to the subcontractors that they work for GC Strategy?
Thank you. With the indulgence and the patience of members of the committee, let me highlight quickly what the $54 million were used for. 80,000 of that was to use to produce the first application of ArriveCan. 80,000 in April 2020, in a record amount of time, at a period at which we know that things needed to be done quickly. It was the first time ever that we were closing borders with the rest of the world. We were in emergency at a time at which hundreds of people were dying every day. There were economic costs of the order of $1 billion per day that were impacting the Canadian economy. Now, borders were fraught with problems. We needed to bring in medicine, food. We needed trucks to come in easily. The flow of travelers to be done efficiently. That cost $80,000 initially. But then we had to do more. 70-plus releases, $8.8 million, 7.5 for Service Canada call center, absolutely essential for people to call and have information on the situation, data management to make sure that the data was shared efficiently and safely, then indirect costs to pay for the public servants who had to work hard every day to provide support for the health and safety of of Canadians, approve of vaccination credential development, $4.6 million, because vaccination proof was essential. If you wanted to travel, you had to have vaccination proof. Then we had to support IT. We had to support the security, the cyber security of the flow of that information, $2.3 million, making the app accessible to people that needed accessibility in the use of technology, $1.7 million. And I could go on. But that investment was absolutely needed to save the lives of lots of people and to prevent the additional cost to the economy that would have been endured if we had not done the type of investment we needed to do.
Thank you, Mr. Quickly, a number of times you mentioned in your opening remarks around the great work that the government has done on dental care program that we are rolling out. Can you briefly give us an update on where our government is going to be by the end of 2023, 24?
Good, thank you. And there are too many children and seniors and people with disabilities in my riding, I suppose it's the same, Majid, in your riding, that don't go and see a dentist regularly. And so what happens is that they end up in a hospital emergency room with health outcomes that are a lot worse because they didn't have either an insurance or the resources that they needed to care for their oral needs. So that's why soon, as you'll see this in the next few weeks, we'll be launching the first ever Canadian dental plan. That is going to lead to the support of approximately 9 million Canadians over the next 2 years. All of them either middle income or lower income Canadians. We'll start with seniors in 2024, with people with disabilities, with all children of all ages between 0 and 18 by the summer 2024. And then by 2025, every Canadian under the family income threshold of $90,000 will be eligible now to go to see an hygienist or a dentist and therefore end up with better oral health.
Mr. Chair, I move that the committee now proceed to the second hour with the government officials.
You don't need a motion for that. Don't need a motion for that. Before you go, Minister, I'm going to exercise chair prerogative. Just a couple of quick questions. I'm not looking for answers now. If you could just provide them back in writing. One was October 17th. The committee asked for, and your department agreed to provide the committee with the Avocent report regarding the P8. I'm checking my calendar. I'm not the greatest at math, but it does seem quite a bit late. This was October 17th. We requested it. It was supposed to be here November 7th. So we're now 21 days late. Can we get the report this week, please? I know it's been translated. It was promised us November 7th.
I will ask my officials to follow up on that. It's a legitimate question and a legitimate request.
Yeah. And the rest is actually for Mr. Page, so you could probably go. Just quickly, Mr. Page, about 7 years ago, I asked in the... Oh, he's left. Sorry. No, he's still there. Oh, it's back. I asked in this committee about 7 years ago about the weight issue and the pricing on the frigates. And the comment back from PSBC was we already adjusted for the weight issue in the pricing and the contract and plan contracting. So I'm curious, 6 years after that time, about a year ago then, we ended up with the Irving subsidy on the excuse of, well, we changed the project. 7 years ago, I was told it had already been baked into the costing. So I'm just looking for, provide in writing to the committee the justification and where in the NSS, in the umbrella agreement, it says no public money for the infrastructure, the justification in the NSS umbrella agreement that allows this subsidy to Irving for that. And just last quick question is, if you could provide back for us, how many serviceable acres from Canada Lands that were not turned over for the 28,000 housing items that you mentioned? And we will excuse you, Minister.
Good. Thank you for the additional homework, and thank you again for the kind invitation to visit this wonderful committee.
It's great to see you back in our different portfolio. We'll give you a punch. So you've done 2 different portfolios with OGO. So 3 more, and you get a free cup of coffee.
Kelly, so thank you.
And Chair, just on behalf of the committee, the minister said he wants to be the minister of everything. So I want to wish him well in his leadership campaign.
Yeah. Our first official horse out of the gate. Suspend for a couple moments for the new witnesses come up.
Thank you, Chair. And again, I thank the Minister for appearing. This committee has important unfinished business from yesterday. We spent about, I think, 4 or 5 hours of committee time And we did not finish the discussion of a conservative motion to try to get contracts related to billions of dollars in government subsidies involving, for instance, Stellantis. This is an important motion that I believe, based on the previous discussions, clearly has the support of the majority of the committee. Liberals do not support it, and we're trying various delay tactics, but it is clear, I think, that the majority of the committee supports this motion. So I would like us to return to consideration of this motion. Hopefully, Liberals will allow it to come to a vote so that we can get our work done, request these contracts, shine some sunlight on them.
Interrupt you there.
So I'm going to now move that the committee proceed to resumption of consideration on the motion that we were considering yesterday.
Thank you. So that is a dilatory motion. We'll just go straight to the vote, and this is to resume the debate that we had suspended at about 8:45 last night. It's a dilatory motion. Just go straight to a vote.
So, Mr. Pulowski.
No.
Mr. Baines.
No.
Mr. Shawari.
Against.
Mr. Kuzmichek.
No.
Mr. Sousa.
No.
Mr. Brock.
Yes.
Mr. Genius.
Yes.
Ms. Kusi.
In favor.
Madame Vignora.
Oui.
Mr. Johns.
No.
Yeas 4. Nays 6.
Okay, I'm afraid motion was defeated. We will now continue with the officials.
Point of order, Chair.
Go ahead, sir.
Maybe to save time, I wonder, it's just worth asking if there would be unanimous consent to deem the motion in its current amended form adopted. That would save us some time. We're just requesting unanimous consent. Is there?
Can move a motion on a point of order, but no, we don't have consent anyways, I'm afraid. Yes, it was.
Mr. Sousa was
We're going to
okay.
continue with our order, and it's Ms. Kusi. Ms. Kusi for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Due to the limited oversight of the Government of Canada's subcontractors, how do you ensure that these companies are fulfilling their obligations under the integrity regime?
Thank you very much for the question, and I'm glad to be here for the second hour because I'm hoping that I'll be able to provide with some of the senior officials here some clarity to some of the questions you've asked before. In terms of the integrity regime, we have the Canada's Register with us, and she'll describe a little bit some of the various elements that tie it together for increased vendor performance, awareness, training, fraud, detection, and prevention.
Merci beaucoup pour la question, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. When it comes to measures that we take to fight against misconduct, we have a general framework in the department whose goal is to avoid and respond to misconduct when we learn of any cases. When it comes to fraud, we have measures including internal controls. We do awareness raising for employees. There's mandatory training on avoiding fraud, and we also explain our expectations when it comes to ethics and behavior, and that is via our code of conduct for employees and another code for providers. We also know that a key piece is the phone lines for disclosure. So we have partnerships with the RCMP among others. There's also a line that is dedicated to employees. They are able to provide us with misconduct under the Whistleblower Act. Another tool that we use is data analysis. It allows us to detect fraud through anomalies in the major databases. Once we find out that allegations could be present, we refer the case to a specialized unit within the department. This specialized group has the authority to lead investigations for the department. The department also has forensic accountants that studies cases, and if allegations are founded, we are able to refer the cases to the RCMP for investigation. We also have other corrective measures that we can set up. We can halt work, which is what happened in the case of the border services. There can also be revocation of security clearances, and if through investigation we find out that funds were misused, we can also proceed with a process to recover those funds. So all of those measures allow us to supervise what's happening and deal with the risk of fraud.
As I understand it, the integrity regime is used to ensure that the government reduce instances in which Canada enters into contracts or real property agreements with suppliers that have been convicted or charged with an offense listed in the policy linked to unethical business conduct. The review process only covers contractors and first-tier subcontractors, which are the subcontractors with which they directly communicate. So, according to the current processes, Bottler AI would not have been reviewed by the integrity regime. Is there any discussion to include beyond first-tier subcontractors, to include subcontractors, compliance with the integrity regime?
Merci beaucoup pour la question, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you for the question. The first level that is looked at when it comes to the integrity regime is the primary provider. It is that provider's responsibility to make sure that subcontractors are not inadmissible under the integrity regime. So it is the responsibility of the main contractor to look at that. So if the subcontractor is not on the ineligible list, then the main contractor can proceed.
Response, would you have any statistical information as to the percentile of contractors that use sub-suppliers beyond the first tier?
Thank you very much for that question. I don't know if we have that level of visibility. There's a couple of different pieces in this question that needs to be answered. All of our commodities have different relationships from the prime to the sub. So we don't necessarily have all the visibility, but we have some tools to govern it. And based on the work of this committee, we're certainly reviewing them hard because there's a code of conduct that the prime signs with, the supplier signs with Canada. And in it, they certify that what they're providing to us is honest and ethical. We put in various pieces around forced labor, fair wages, criminality, integrity. So now this question about how many levels of subs there are.
We're basically out. Can you finish up really quickly in a couple seconds?
Just to say, we'll have to come back on the levels of subs. I don't think we have it across various commodities.
Thank you. Mr. Pawlowski, please, for 6.
Oh, I'm pleased to see so many officials from the Minister, I guess the Department of Public Service and Procurement. I want to ask you a question about a statement that was in the Fall Economic Statement, which is pretty pertinent to your department. So it says, going forward, Canada will consider reciprocity as a key design element for new policies, including blah, 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 federal procurement. This includes reciprocal
procurement to ensure that countries that do not provide Canadian goods and services with a similar level of market access do not unfairly benefit from access to Canada's markets. So I'm quite interested in this, particularly being from Thunder Bay, and the fact that every subway train ever in Toronto has come from Thunder Bay. Right now, TTC is looking to procure more subway cars, and some of the companies that were in the running were from South Korea, China, and Japan. So this would seem to affect what would happen in terms of procurement there. I wondered if someone might comment on how is this going to actually become reality? Is there going to be some statute or law to put in this requirement of reciprocity, or is this going to be kind of an unwritten rule that the departments follow?
So I'll kick it off. Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Chair. We've been looking at the trade agreements and what the chapters say in the trade agreements related to federal procurement opportunities. And we've been trying to fuse that with what we want to do with Canadian SMEs to make sure that there's a level playing field so they have more access. And that also limits more broad access to to federal procurement opportunities. So in terms of whether or not it'll be supported by a regulatory regime or guidelines or policies, I think that's still being shaped, but perhaps you have more information.
No, that's correct, Mr. Chair, that we are working with Global Affairs to determine what's the proper approach in terms of understanding which markets are open to our SMEs and which ones aren't, and making sure that there's fairness in the opportunities that are afforded Canadian SMEs versus what are afforded to SMEs in other countries.
I think you've already kind of referred to what was my next question was, wouldn't such a requirement of reciprocity be contrary to the WTO agreement on government procurement?
So that's exactly what we're doing. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We're working through the fine print on that to ensure that we're able to have a framework that is going to meet the needs of Canadian SMEs. To that effect, one of the things that we've done under our trade agreements is created a Canada Buys platform, which is an opportunity for all levels of government to have one common tender platform. So that increases the visibility of Canadian SMEs to the opportunities that exist across jurisdictions, again, as a way to lever what we're trying to do with reciprocal procurement.
What would happen if a country doesn't have any, or it hasn't announced or made public any policy that requires them to procure from a company from their own country? So it's not out there publicly. However, if you just look at the history of government procurement in that country, contracts have never gone to Canadian company. But again, it's never been stated. It's not a formal policy. Would that be the basis for Canada then perhaps taking a position? Well, for example, South Korea has never procured anything from a Canadian company, so perhaps we shouldn't be procuring anything from South Korea.
Thank you very much for that question. I think that's best answered by Global Affairs colleagues.
Do I have any time left?
You have 2 minutes.
Oh, no, lots of time. Okay, let me ask about the national shipbuilding strategy. So my understanding is that there was government money available for purchasing new Coast Guard vehicles. Are those tenders out, and when do we expect the contracts to be granted for that? And are the 3 shipbuilding companies that are part of the national shipbuilding strategy, will those contracts be offered to them or to other companies?
Simon, can I turn to you for the details?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. I'm not exactly sure here with Coast Guard vehicles. I will assume it's the remainder of the portfolio of the Coast Guard small vessels to be competed. So the way the national shipbuilding strategy is structured is the 3 large shipyards will have their respective portfolio as per their umbrella agreements, and they have within these umbrella agreements larger ships. So at the moment, our policy statement says that everything above 1,000 tons will be going through the 3 large ship construction. The vessels you're talking about here are expected to be below the 1,000 ton mark, so they would be going to the second pillar of the strategy, which is the construction for smaller vessels those are expected to be competed across smaller shipyards in the nation.
So are there a number of Canadian companies who've put in offers for that contract?
So thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. So the projects are going to be dealt with one by one. We are applying the Buy in Canada policy to the National Shipbuilding Strategy. So it will be Canadian shipyards bidding on the construction of these vessels.
Thanks, Mr. Page. Thank you, Mr. Pulaski. Ms. Vignola, please, for 6.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My question is for Mr. Page. I'd like to get an answer on replacing the CP-140 Aurora. The question is simple. Why not do a call for tender to get a list of everything available now and in the next few years, instead of just choosing a single option, which is an aircraft? That isn't necessarily what we need. Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Chair. So the project is ongoing, and there are decisions that are still ongoing. So all I can say for the moment is that every decision when it comes to the process and the strategy was founded on variables, some of which were described by my minister. For example, capacity, performance, and availability. There was also ratio, value, and price, and finally returns, economic returns for Canada. So each decision reflects those 3 variables. Indeed, having said that, without a call for tender, we cannot have a global view of the responses for each of those variables. 23 companies responded to requests that you made in the past. The department followed the recommendations of a consulting firm. Could we, first of all, get a list of the 23 companies that didn't bid but that offered options? And secondly, could we see the consult report that says, in the end, we're going to choose Boeing. It's the only company that has something available now. Because I'm trying to understand how it is that we chose, that plane was chosen when there are other options out there. So first of all, can we get the list of the 23 companies and then the consultation report? Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair. Yes, it is possible to provide the list of the 23 companies that responded to our call for information. The request for the report had been submitted previously. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Or rather, Mr. Page. I'm trying to find the right wording, not to offend anyone, but refusing to do a call for tender. At the moment, there are crazy rumors about the refusal to go to a call for tender. So, I really hope this isn't true, but I have to know. My last question to the minister was, is there a deal with the U.S. that's forcing us to go with a Boeing? So that's my question. Is there a deal? No, there is no deal. Thank you. In the budget that we're looking at, and this is a question I've already asked, but I'll ask again. One of the comments that I repeatedly wrote in the margins is, how was this not predictable? For example, there's a request for $26 million for the federal initiative on infrastructure and technology. How was that not predictable in the budget? Same thing for buildings. I mean, 175,000 million. How could that not have been foreseen? And then there's solutions for electronic purchases, 17 million. And then 11 million for health. These are sums that I don't understand. Why were they not in the main budget? I can understand if you're dealing with employees and pension funds and negotiations, fine. But how is it that these amounts were not foreseen? I don't understand. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that they were foreseen, but there was a temporal issue for funding for capital investments, for example. There was a sum of money that was used to purchase a building, and
Or perhaps you can get back to us in writing.
Of course.
Wonderful. Mr. Johns for 6 minutes.
I get back to outsourcing gone wrong and Phoenix. Again, talking about the Conservatives bringing in the Phoenix payroll system, supposed to save $80 million. Last we heard it was $2.3 billion. This is 8 years in. Liberals have carried forward with this outsourcing privatization scheme. How much is it costed us to date? What is the amount right now?
Turn to my CFO for more precision.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question. So the total investment in Phoenix to date is $3.5 billion. The vast majority of that investment is actually not outsourcing, to be clear. That is for public servants who work on the Phoenix pay system, who work on paying public servants every day. And that's where the vast majority of that investment has been made to date.
So fixing it.
It's not only fixing it. That when I quote the number of $3.5 billion, it also includes the maintaining the system to continue to pay public servants on a regular basis. So that total number includes both the cost of continuing to pay public servants, as well as dealing with items like the backlog and continuing to improve the system so it can accurately pay public servants.
The system that was supposed to save us $80 million a year. So I'm going to go to my constituents because they're calling me on a regular basis in dire situations. A lot of them have been unpaid. You know, one person was actually worried about losing their home. You know, public service workers, who you are as well, have suffered untold financial and emotional hardship from being owed thousands of dollars, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars, and in some cases for years. Now I'm hearing from PSAC that no one at the pay center has the ability to or authority to prioritize individual cases and ensure their resolution. Is it true that there aren't any employees who can escalate or prioritize a case or manually ensure it gets resolved as soon as possible? And if so, why not? Especially in really extreme cases, emergencies, even there should absolutely be a process in place to elevate those cases.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for the question. To be clear, there's a whole center of expertise at the Pay Center that's a hardship center. There's people working on the backlog that are dedicated to that. So we'll have to work with the various MPs' offices to get kind of that process through so people know where to go.
Yeah, because, obviously we're hearing from people that haven't been paid for work they've done. And then we hear about people that were overpaid and the government's going after them. When are you going to prioritize just paying the people who actually worked? Then you can go after the people that have been overpaid. Because that seems to me the ethical right thing to do?
So I'll just add on that most of the FTEs are working on making sure that payroll is met, that people are getting paid accurately on time.
When are you going to fix this? When is this going to be
So-
fixed, and what resources are going to be needed to make sure everybody gets paid and this is fixed? How much is it going to cost us? We're at $3.5 billion. What's it going to cost?
So I'm going to answer your last question after the previous question around the ratio of staff working on hardship cases on the backlog versus overpayment. Over double are for folks that need the hardship pay and the backlog. We have now tried to deprioritize the overpayment piece and really put our focus on the individual employees that are in that backlog and hardship. In terms of the overall cost, we'll have to, I think that the estimates are still underway. You've seen the numbers that we spent. We're looking, and I don't know, Scott, if you have anything you want to add from a next-gen perspective as it cuts away from Phoenix.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Shared Services Canada was responsible for examining next-gen human resources, and that was our examination of commercially available solutions to eventually replace, possibly replace. The project is concluded. The information has been shared to the Associate Deputy Minister responsible for the next steps. The report concluded three things. Number one, a commercial solution is viable. Number two, it would require the Government of Canada to change some of its processes around pay. And number three, the commercial solution would need certain customizations in order to accommodate Government of Canada pay, but it is a viable solution. Thank you.
Is asking for $7.3 million to provide supplies for the healthcare system after the government asked Canadian SMEs to invest millions into retooling and starting to manufacture PPE. The government still hasn't procured any PPE from Canadian small businesses. Now, the government is still relying entirely on foreign PPE, is our understanding. How much of the $7.3 million is for personal protective equipment, and how much of it will be put into the domestic industry, or will this promise remain broken?
Thank you very much for the question. The $7.3 million is actually the highly specialized storage costs of the mobile health units that we purchased during the pandemic. We give them out to the provinces and territories and to municipalities if they need use for them. So because they're such highly technical mobile units, they require a fee to be looked after.
In terms of domestic, what is the commitment on the domestic side?
Thank you. I think that question is better for ISED officials who are looking at domestic preparedness.
Not public services and procurement? You're not supporting them?
Well, we would be doing any of the contracting that's required, but they're the client. They set the funding and the direction and the requirements that are needed.
And no one here can answer that question.
Mr. Chair, during the pandemic.
I'm afraid that is our time, Mr. Mills. We're now on to our final round, and we're going to Mr. Genuis, please.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Reza, the minister was very keen to pass the floor to you, and I was trying to ask him questions. So I'd like to hear your take on the answers he was not giving, or at least if you can shed some light on the question that I was trying to get to. But let me just kind of frame it a little bit. I'm trying to understand what your department does. You're the department responsible for procurement. In this highly publicized, contentious case, the procurement of the ArriveCAN app, what we heard from other officials at your department is that CBSA brought them a solution and they signed off on it. My expectation would have been that your department has some role in terms of understanding the decision-making process, looking at value for money, trying to understand what is and is not an appropriate procurement. But in the very troubling case of the ArriveCAN procurement, the response we're getting from your officials, from your minister, is somebody else's problem. Is it somebody else's problem, or should your department have had something to say or do about that decision?
Thank you very much for the question, and I genuinely appreciate being able to circle back to it. I want to be clear that I'm speaking to you from being the deputy, but I was the assistant deputy minister at the time that these contracts were being let. So I think it's really important to understand that during the first 2 years of the pandemic, PSPC awarded 20 new contracts to CBSA for pandemic response. So there's 20 contracts, and those contracts were not ArriveCan specific. They were IT consulting specific and software licensing. So in terms of who authorized those contracts, they were authorized at various levels depending on the dollar value. So none needed the authority of the minister or the deputy minister, and 2 needed my authority as the ADM. And I think those are the 2 that are of interest to the committee. So more specifically on those 20 contracts that we awarded on behalf of CBSA, I authorized 2 of them as the ADM of procurement, 2 that went to GC Strategies based on the recommendation of the procurement team, the officers that you saw that testified a couple of weeks ago. The 2 I authorized, and I think this is important for the committee, and there's forms on this, were for IT assistance to help the Public Health Agency, Health Canada, and CBSA integrate multiple data sources in a real-time basis. And the second contract was for professional services to provide digital support to CBSA across a variety of low-touch, no-touch initiatives that they needed for their border operations.
Sorry, ma'am, I will come back to you, but I just want to kind of direct your response a little bit. In the process of authorizing these 2 contracts, what is your role and the role of your department? Are you looking at it and saying this is value for money or not? Are you saying, hey, why are we hiring these 2 guys who work out of a basement instead of a larger firm or going direct? Are you asking those questions, or is because the way this has been framed for us by some people on your side is, well, it was brought to us by CBSA, so we agreed. So what role are you playing in actually analyzing the content of the decision?
Run out of time, so I'm going to go relatively quickly. Yeah. So thank you for the question. So in normal circumstances, there are 2 parties to procurement in the Government of Canada. There's a contracting authority that looks at the procurement strategy and plays the challenge function and takes over the various elements of it. Fundamentally, a PSPC, that's competition. We let the market set it. We look at competition. We look at values and ethics. We look at various elements. On the client side, in this case CBSA, their requirement is to show up with a funded requisition with the sign-off to say, we have a need for this work and we have a source of funds to cover it. It is within our legislation, it is within our regulatory requirement, and it is within our mandatory mandate. From there, in normal times, when we're not in pandemic, we'll look at the competitive tool. In this particular instance, they came with GC Strategies for IT staff augmentation. ArriveCan didn't exist. They said, we need help keeping our borders open, keeping cargo moving, people safe. We looked at the fact that GC Strategies was a pre-qualified pre-qualified firm, that there was no sanctions against them, that they had the security clearance, that they had no vendor.
Sorry, I have 10 seconds left. And if the chair will let you respond to this last bit, but you said you have a role in providing, in normal times at least, a challenge function. Given everything that clearly is problematic, given how obviously dishonest Christian Firth is and was in his testimony before this committee, are you looking back and saying we didn't really do our job sufficiently here, or are you looking back and saying it was fine, no problems?
We'll need it in writing, and I'm just going to remind everyone now, this committee has passed a motion that anything that we have asked for has to be provided, anything that we've requested in writing like this has to be provided within 3 weeks, which is why I bring up the other report. So if you can make sure everything's back within 3 weeks to avoid being called back. Thanks. We're now with Mr. Baines for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm going to be giving my time to Mr. Sousa.
Thank you guys for coming out. I appreciate it. Deputy, so further to the discussion that was just being had, we're trying to grapple with the decision by which we outsource. So there's been some recommendations already made by the opposition and others here around the table that why do we have a middleman? Why is it necessary for the Government of Canada to go out and source contracts to provide work? Why don't we just hire it, and why don't we just be the work? Why isn't PSPC the middleman? Why are we not doing that? Why are we not going out and looking for the subcontractors as opposed to a contractor? Can you provide some clarity to this, to our committee on this issue?
Thank you very much. So PSPC manages about $25 billion of procurement a year on behalf of the government of Canada. Some of the commodities, like the one that we're talking about here, which is kind of IT staff augmentation or outsourcing, where the government needs technical skill sets. So we look at it from two different angles. In the government, the various departments that have a need for it will look to say, do they have the IT bench strength? Can they attract the people in? So that's the first triage. And when they don't have access to that, and when there's an immediate pressing need, like it was during the pandemic, or any of our IT systems, I'm sure the committee is well aware that our IT systems are over 50 years of age, so the need gets more and more pressing. We go through what we would consider a broker in this case, almost akin to when you have a general contractor at home, when you do your renovations. And that general contractor or broker brings you a certain skill set. They're bringing you the licensed plumber and the licensed electrician. They're bringing them together at the same time, and they're carrying the liability. I know when I hire a general contractor, just like when Canada does, they take the insurance liability, the payroll, and they're bringing together the skill sets that we need in a timely fashion. And
Can you share with the committee the inputs that have become ArriveCan? Can you sort of assemble for this committee what ArriveCan became and how it developed?
well, the questions are best placed for CBSA. I'll give you the procurement lens as I understand it. So as I noted before, during the first 2 years of the pandemic, PSPC awarded 20 contracts. Those contracts are for professional services, software licensing. They're agnostic to the word ArriveCan for the most part. They are really looking at biometrics. So we provided bench strength support to CBSA when they needed to have technical skills that could do real-time data analysis, provide application services. And what we did was we used our expertise where we had pre-qualified methods of supply to be able to go and find suppliers that had the security qualifications, had no vendor performance checks against them, that had the capacity to find the IT services that were required and needed and used to develop measures for border operations. And I'll just pause here. Is there something you would add?
The one part I would add is that kind of at a functional level, they built applications, but they also made adjustments to existing systems within CBSA so that the application would integrate to their own main systems and allow them to actually aggregate data. Part of what they were doing also was looking at how do they work with and support public health data and other sources of data and bring that together. So it's a range of IT investments that they made to enable that app.
And if I would just add, one of the key things we talk about roles and responsibilities, which I see is of strong interest, and this is something that we're taking on board as we look at what's coming out of findings from this report or this committee, from the AG report, from the OPO report that will look at procurement practices. It's understanding the contracting versus client responsibilities. We have responsibilities for the contracting authority. They have responsibilities for the technical direction, the decisions, signing off that what they asked for was delivered. So it's been very difficult from an accountability perspective to say who in CBSA, because CBSA brought us a requirement and they signed off on it and they attested for it. And that is the level that we normally work at. So I think that's something that bears discussion.
A lot of discussion around GC strategies. So can you, GC Strategies did not have a contract during the time that they were dealing with Bottler, with the government of Canada. That was with a separate contractor. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe that's with Dalian Cordix.
And the
Sorry, Mr.
RCMP...
Sousa, that is our time. Madam Mignola for 2.5, please.
Merci. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Mr. Mills. When you appeared here on November 9th about Indigenous businesses, you said what you have to understand is that in our strategy, 33% of the resources and subcontractors must be Indigenous. This is on the global value of the contract, which means that Indigenous companies can subcontract to non-Indigenous companies. But I think you mentioned that the strategy was 5%. So can you explain this 33%? I have trouble understanding the number.
Mr. Chair, for the 5% target of the government, we take by value the total value of contracts and subcontracts that are awarded to companies that are listed on the Indigenous Business Directory. And so the Indigenous Business Directory is run by Indigenous Services Canada. And in order for to be qualified on that, they have to be 51% owned by an Indigenous entity. And they also need to do 33% of the work in contracts through those entities.
Merci, c'est déjà beaucoup plus clair.
Thank you. That helped. It's much clearer than what I was reading in the Hansard. I'd like to return to my questions from earlier. I can see that when it comes to Treasury Board, there's an envelope for programs, for remuneration. I understand that that has to do with negotiations. Now, what about the money for Phoenix? $5 million. What is that money for exactly? What agreement does it have to do with? Because I think $5 million would be too little to cover all of the employees affected by Phoenix. I'm talking about page 2-134.
Again, we're out of time. You're going to have to respond in writing for that, please. Mr. Johns for 2.5, please.
So as you know, New Democrats are happy to see the government finally introduce new anti-scab legislation, which is legislation we fought really hard for. Now, we will keep fighting for it to pass, so workers will have far more power once companies can't replace them with scabs. Now, this new legislation would significantly increase the responsibility of Employment and Social Development's regulatory board, the Canadian Industrial Relations Board, which would need to make a determination on every strike. Now, the board is already overburdened, so I would expect this massive new workload to come with new resources, but the opposite seems to be the case. The government wants to reduce ESDC's funding by $3 million. It's really critical that the public service gets the funding they need when new programs like this are introduced. Can you confirm that the board will get the funding it needs to meet these new responsibilities and that it won't be affected by the cuts?
Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Chair, but I think it's best addressed to ESDC officials.
In 2018, the UN Special Rapporteur on Poverty and Human Rights discussed privatization as a cause of poverty, while still costing governments more. Do you believe the government is aware of global research on privatization, has actually made efforts to incorporate these findings into the decisions through your departments and your lens of PSPC when it comes to outsourcing?
Thank you very much. I can't answer that question, but I can tell you that when we look at outsourcing, we are really drilling down. And I think that this, Mr. Chair, is really worthy of a discussion in the sense that at PSPC, we're accountable for $2.2 billion of the professional services that the government spends. And when you actually look across what that spend is, it's Parliament, it's decontaminating federal mines, it's doing an engineering asset, of the Alaska Highway. So most of the professional services that the government undertakes is shipbuilding, nurses in the north. So I think that there's perhaps a missed opportunity for what is in that category. Mm-hmm.
For you directly, Ms. Reza, you told me that you're checking the CVs on the question I asked on outsourcing earlier. How can your government check the CVs and ensure that they haven't been forged or modified when the only ones who have access to the copies that, for the contractors were provided to PSCP?
That's our time, Mr. Johns. Maybe you can put
nodded,
forward
so
a real quick question. Can you provide it in about 15 seconds? Or do you want to get back to us in
Oui,
writing?
merci beaucoup pour la question, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you for the question. So we check with departments that have active contracts, and we specifically asked them to contact those specific 3 companies to ensure that the CVs are not exaggerated and that then they get consent to go forward with those CVs. And once they receive the information, we ask them to verify some of the information. So the information is within the hands of the departments with active contracts. They're going to get in touch with the 3 companies that were mentioned. Thank you.
Thanks. We're down to our final 2 interventions, so we are out of time almost. So we're going to go to 2 3-minute rounds. Ms. Kusi, or is it Mr. Genos? Mr. Genos, please.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Reza, I'll pick up where we left off, if that's okay. I was asking you in terms of the role that your department played around the signing off on the contract of ArriveCan for GC Strategies. Looking back on it, is this one where you say, we could have done better achieving value for money? Or do you look back and say, everything was fine?
Thank you very much for the question. What is interesting is the actual documentation and justification is extremely robust. So would we have done anything differently given the information we had at the time? They were a pre-qualified vendor. The rates that were used were competitive. They were in good standing. There was the limitation of liability insurance. There was the errors and omission. So there's nothing that would have changed.
So
the security requirements were in place.
You're kind of answering a question that I didn't ask, but it's interesting the way you're approaching that. You're saying essentially that the process worked, but from my perspective, and I think from the perspective of taxpayers, the outcome was terrible. So if the process unfolded the way it was supposed to, and the outcome was, from the perspective, I think most members of this committee, terrible, does that suggest that there's a problem with the process? I guess that's a policy question more than a public service question, but do you want to weigh in on that?
I just want to say that PSPC's role is to look at the value in the procurement process. Did we choose the right procurement process for the right time? Was the justification on file? Were the services provided? So in terms of the value for money, perhaps CBSA is best placed to do that. I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Do you have the name of the person at CBSA who brought this proposal to you?
Thank you very much for the question. Just for clarity, nobody brought a proposal to me. As you heard from officials in the previous testimony.
But you had to sign off on it, or so how did it get to you, I guess?
It got to me via 3 levels of recommendation internally to PSPC as the ADM of procurement. So I have no visibility at this time on who was on the other side of the PSPC. That being said, as part of the production, the order production, I think the documents with the task authorizations will come forward with the officials on the CBSA side.
Okay. Yeah, Mr. Chair, just in the time we have left, I do wonder if it's the will of the committee to go back to the motion and see if we can get it wrapped up.
No.
No. Okay, well, I will move to proceed back to the motion then and see if the committee, yes, I can do that because I have the floor and it's a dilatory motion. So I'll move that we proceed to that motion.
Mr. Shari, we have a dilatory motion. It's to return to the motion from yesterday on the EV.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair.
Go ahead,
Point of order.
Mr. Kuzmirchuk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can I just get clarification from the clerk if this is permitted? It's the exact same motion we defeated several minutes ago.
I can just
Yes,
the
a
point
question
of
of the
order.
clerk.
Yeah, I'll respond to that. Yeah. Chatting with the clerk, it is technically different, so it is allowed, Mr. Kuzmirchuk?
Point of order. How's it different?
How's
Sure.
it different?
Yeah, so,
Give me
so
a second, Mr. Souza.
the
and I
rule.
will, hold on, let me interrupt. Mr. Souza, I'm going to just be real blunt and mean here. I think we get along great, but if you're going to continue to interrupt when I'm saying something, I will stop recognizing you. Okay? Thank you. Mr. Jonas, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Just on the point of order, and hopefully this is helpful. The rule regarding adjournment and then resumption is that if something happens in between, then you are allowed to move that dilatory motion again. It makes sense because Mr. Johns didn't want to resume consideration of this because of what was happening at the time. Now events have happened. We have heard from officials. So now we're at a different time. That principle applies. You can adjourn debate and resume it an hour later. Something has to happen in between, but it doesn't have to be 48 hours. As long as something happens in between, then that's allowed. I hope that's helpful. So that the motion is obviously in order and would be ruled that way by any chair in any committee who knows the rules.
Yeah. While we're continuing, I'm going to dismiss our witnesses for today. Thanks for joining us. Getting back to the original question, the original motion earlier today was to move past and not hear from these witnesses and to resume. Now we're just going to a straight resume. So it is different. I'm not making this up. I am receiving advice from our clerk on this. So continue. We are now voting on the motion to resume to debate. Witnesses, thank you again.
So the motion moved by Mr. Generous to resume now debate on the motion moved on November 27. Mr. Pulowski.
No.
Mr. Baines.
No.
Mr. Zouari.
Oppose?
Mr. Kuzmirchuk.
No.
Mr. Sousa.
No.
Mr. Brock.
Yes.
Mr. Jonas.
Yes.
Ms. Kusi.
In favor.
Madame Vignora.
Oui.
Mr. Johns.
Yes.
5-5.
Yes. Yeah, we are resuming debate. Ms. Vignola, we finished with yourself. You do have the floor. Before we do continue, I see Mr. Sousa. The clerk has sent out to everyone's P9 in both languages where we finished yesterday, which was the adoption of Ms. Vignola's motion. Oh, she's doing that now. So at the very end, we did adopt her motion. So we're just sending out now. So you may continue, or we can suspend a couple of moments for it to come out. Why don't we just suspend for about 2 minutes for the email to come out?
that we vote on the original motion as amended, given that we've already spent over 4 hours on the topic. We've really discussed it in depth. And so I would suggest that we move on to a vote on the motion as amended. Thank you.
We cannot force a vote, but it's a request. Colleagues, can we move to? Oh, I see Mr. Sousa. Go ahead, Mr. Sousa.
Yeah, I'd like to move an amendment to the amendment, and I would like to read it as follows.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt. We don't have an amendment on.
I'd like to make an amendment to the motion.
To the motion, thank you. And if you do you have it in writing? You can forward to the clerk as well.
I can maybe have someone submit it. I can read it. I would like to read it so you guys can understand what we're saying.
Just don't read it very fast because the clerk has to type as we go. Go
All
ahead,
right.
Mr. Sousa.
So I move that in Part E, after the words provided that, the following be added. When these documents are received by the clerk, which then creates a new F, they be available at the clerk's office for viewing by committee members only for 1 week, to be designated by the committee no later than 30 days following the receipt of the contracts, under the supervision of the clerk, and that no personal mobile, electronic, or recording devices of any kind be permitted in the room that week, and that no notes be taken out of the room. This then creates a new G, which reads as follows. Representatives of innovation, science, and economic development be invited to appear for a 2-hour in-camera meeting, and that during the meeting, only committee members and support staff required for the meeting be permitted to attend, and that no personal mobile, electronic, or recording devices of any kind be permitted in the room during the meeting. That during the meeting, numbered paper copies of the documents be given to committee members who are present in person by the clerk at the beginning of said meeting, and that these copies be returned to the clerk at the end of the meeting, and that the clerk be instructed to destroy said copies, and that no notes be taken out of the room. And then what is now F would become H, and it reads, and as follows, that redacted versions of be added before these documents. So it reads as follows. That redacted versions of these documents shall be deposited with the clerk of the committee and then change 1 week to 3 weeks. And that the words and without redactions and be published on the committee's website, be deleted. So to clarify, it would then read as follows. H, that redacted versions of these documents shall be deposited with the clerk of the committee within 3 weeks in both official languages. This being said,
Perfect.
I'll make sure that someone has it forwarded off to the clerk. Yep.
On the amendment, Mr. Genis.
Thank you, Chair. It's evident that the Liberals, first of all, do not want this motion considered at all, which is why they repeatedly voted against resuming consideration of it. Secondly, they are intent on carving it up in every which way possible. The intention of this motion is that the public, the taxpayer, the people whose sweat-soaked loonies are going into these big corporate subsidies, can actually know about the contract. And Mr. Sousa's proposal that the public not know about these contracts, not have an opportunity to know anything about them, and that a small number of members of parliament go into a locked room without their phones and look at them and can't tell anybody about what they see, does not satisfy our expectation of sunlight and transparency. The proposal that he has put forward is designed to undercut the entire objective of the motion, which is a reasonable level of public accountability and scrutiny. So on that basis, Conservatives and I suspect all other parliamentarians on this side of the House will obviously oppose the pro-secrecy, anti-transparency agenda of Mr. Sousa and his colleagues.
Thank you. And with that, we are out of resources, colleagues, so I am going to adjourn. I am adjourning.